up, everybody? How you guys doing? Just first and foremost, just need to double check my mic because OBS tells me that my audio isn't too loud. So just let me know how that's going. What's up, Forrest? Hello, Chero, Aaron. Is my sound okay? Yeah, my audio's low. Just give me 1 second. I just need to double check this. Properties, microphone, default, okay. Actually, just give us 1 second. We'll be right back. Auto, auto, auto. Let me know if this is better. Is this better? I don't know what happened. For some reason, my settings changed. All right, this is good enough. Is it high enough? We can go with this. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, my volume's low. Just give me 1 second. I really don't know why this isn't working. Auto. Okay, let me what I'll do is I'll just add something very quick. Okay, push my gain. Okay, this should work much better now. Okay, close. Sorry about this, guys. Is this good? Sorry, Steve. This is a first. Generally we're good. Okay, we're good to go. All right. Sorry for taking so long. We're going to get started. So just wanted to let's do this. Yeah, I'm super excited today. I'm here with Steve. This is Steve just discovered your art station like what, 2 days ago? Like when I posted that the tank on Facebook, that's when I discovered your art station page. So I'm super excited to actually have you so fast on the stream, and I'll actually let you introduce yourself
Sure.
And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I'm Steve. Art station, you guys might know me by SWANG. And I'm currently a concept artist at Microsoft here in Vancouver, Canada. And in the past, I've worked with Neil Blomkamp at Oat Studios. I worked on freelance projects here and there. And recently, I've really been diving into like the realm of doing a lot of personal work. And I think we can get into that a little bit deeper later downstream.
That's awesome, man. So where are you currently based right now?
I'm currently in Vancouver.
Okay, gotcha.
Actually, that's where I've been almost my whole life.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, man, like and you work mostly, are you freelancing right now? Are you in a video game or film? Because you're working on both from what I see, both the film industry and video games, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm technically a freelancer. Like I do, like, if my client requests of it, I will go in-house. Like for example, with Oat Studios, when I was still working there, I would go in 5 days when they need me to, but when they didn't need me to, I was there like 2 days or 3 days, did not have time for other projects.
Awesome, man. I'll actually let you share your screen, and if you want to start,
Okay.
you know, let's. If you want to just walk us through your portfolio just to get started, and just show us, you know, some of your favorite pieces and perhaps milestone points throughout your career exploration, education, self-education, and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. I prepared a little. Is my screen sharing working right now?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. All right. So I prepared like a little image slide, just kind of going through, um, you know, the basics of how it came about. So at first, I was actually not into concept art.
Okay.
When I was doing this, I wasn't even aware of it. So I got into product design instead. So like you can see some of my super old sketches. They're high school, like when I was 17. I was preparing a portfolio for Art Center.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all I knew. All I knew was product design, right, and stuff like this, super crude sketches. And I got in, and I really enjoyed. And when I was in Art Center, I really enjoyed the, I guess, the drawing part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff that I was doing over there, like really basic perspective stuff.
Okay.
Right, and then as I got more and more advanced into the program, I think what happened was just like we're focusing a lot on the realistic logistics side of things, sometimes even the business side of things, and the program itself was missing a lot of the drawing side of things.
Okay.
So I just kind of felt like, you know, more and more distant towards it. And then eventually I was taking a course and they wanted us to do some digital painting. I was so bad at it that I was like, okay, I can't do this. I started looking at tutorials online. And then eventually I stumbled upon Feng Zhu's video online. And then he kind of inspired me to kind of dive into this rabbit hole of concept art. So I just kept on looking into it. And then eventually I decided to drop out of Art Center and pursue his school for a year.
Okay, so at what point Art Center, that was what, a 4-year program, I'm guessing?
Art Center was supposed to be, well, they go by term. So usually the advertised you know, term is 8 terms. You can finish in 8 terms.
Yeah.
But I would say most people are there for anywhere between 10 to 12 terms.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is around 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
Give or take. And I was there for 5 terms. So like if I really wanted to, I guess if I pushed myself, I could probably graduate in a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like the deal for me, where at that point I really knew that, you know, product design wasn't the thing for me, and you know, I wanted to pursue concept art. So I kind of brought up this idea, you know, to my parents, because at the time they were helping me pay for college and everything.
Yeah.
They were just like, well, you know, that's a good idea. We respect your decision, but the realistic thing is we don't have, like, you know, infinite amount of money for college.
Yeah.
And you know, you can finish Art Center for this one last year if you want, or you can use a year to basically pursue this concept art thing. But if I were to stay at Art Center and pursue entertainment design program there, I would have to redo a lot of my credits.
Yeah,
and that
I
would
see.
take another like 3 years or something like that.
Yeah,
We just didn't have the finance for that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it is pretty expensive. Art Center is one
Oh
of,
yeah,
like, it's,
yeah. It was crazy. I think right now it's like 20,000 a term.
Yeah.
Or more. When I was there, it was 15,000, and then I had a 30% scholarship, so I was paying about 10 grand.
Yeah.
But it was still crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty. Like, I'm just thinking, because when I came to Canada and to the States, I'm considered an international student.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm even thinking, for an international student, it must be like a whole different ball game. But the thing about Art Center is, unlike a lot of institutions, you do get a solid education, I believe, in terms of skill level and content that are taught.
Yep.
It seems to deliver on that, because I've been at schools where, you know, you pay a ton, and you know, you see your peers graduate, and they have to go back and get another degree just because the skill level wasn't up to par, you know?
Yep.
So how was Feng Zhu? Like, that's, I think anyone at this point has been on his website thinking, how can I get to Singapore and do this thing?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
So that I would say the difference between Feng Zhu School and our center is that I feel like Feng Zhu School, they push you a lot harder.
Okay, wow.
In our center, they do push you hard, but you are kind of given the freedom to explore, you know, to explore Los Angeles. You can go out, you can have fun. Like, you're given that freedom.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times the students that tend to do really, really well in our center are the ones that take the freedom, but then use it in their own personal work or design work.
Yeah.
So at the time I was really, really young. So, you know, I didn't have that kind of discipline to sit down and just do my work, you know, 7 days a week for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So I think what was with Feng School was that, you know, we're kind of stuck in a room with 20 to 25 people, students, and we didn't switch classes. Like, you're with these people like the whole entire time. And yeah, I gotta give a shout out to some of my classmates in the chat. I see a couple of them in the chat.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, man. Lucas, you know, Marvin, Chris. Yeah, I went to school with them. We just kept on trying to motivate each other and trying to, you know, push each other to get better. And I just felt like that experience from a discipline side was much better than what I got at RC. Right. And then I guess the content side, I think it's what you expect. Like, if you go to Fang's website, you know, you'll see perspective drawing, a lot of perspective drawing. Actually, I can probably show some of the work.
Yeah, go ahead. And the guys you gave a shout out to, M Star. If you guys want to post a link to your portfolio, that'd be super awesome, man.
Yeah, guys, just post your station. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So this is like some of them. They might remember these paintings, but these are like my first digital painting when I was in Fang school.
Okay.
I didn't really do any digital painting back then, and he was just like, all right, here, go study some movie frames and try to replicate it. I was like, what am I doing in my life?
What was this movie you picked?
I think the first one was Game of Thrones. The second one was How to Train Your Dragon, and then the bottom one was Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, your brush work is completely different.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I didn't understand. Like, I think at the time, well, actually until very recently, when I'm looking at a reference or a photo or a frame to copy, my mind was telling me to, like, hey, copy it one-to-one. And I think that's what I was seeing in a lot of my older works, where the strokes are like, hey, I see that shape there, I'm trying to copy it. But then recently I'm starting to look at references and photos and try to interpret it my own way. And I've been reading a great book, Alla Prima by Richard Schmidt.
Okay.
And he's kind of talking about, you know, you squinting your eyes, and I mean, this applies more to life drawings, but you squinting your eyes, and what the edges and the contrast that remains when you squint your eyes are the ones you should focus on. And everything else, it's really just an interpretation of brush edges and, you know, soft edges, hard edges, and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what I'm trying to work on now. Anyways, yeah, like in Fang school, we did a lot of like line drawing heavy stuff.
Yeah.
My line drawing, like, I think it was a lot better than my digital painting for sure.
Yeah, because you already had some of the experience you got from the product, from the industrial design education you had, and those skills sort of transfer really, really well to concept art. You think, I always mention this, but Mike Hill is one of my favorite designers. Like, just the way he approaches, like how he makes his design decisions and everything is it makes me think of what's his name, Dieter Rams, in a way. The way Dieter approaches design, everything makes sense, form, function, and everything. But he manages to basically deal with that concept art, fantasy, imagination, but still manage to make sure that everything from an engineering point and basically works and functions. So yeah,
no,
generally
like
industrial designers do good concept artists.
I think so. Like the foundation that you get from an industrial design background, it's a lot different if you were to go for the illustrative route. Like even in art center, usually there are people who go to entertainment designs, and a lot of the stuff kind of looks like, you know, like the Scott Robertson industrial design, hard surface style. And there's another route where people go into the illustration path. They do a lot of figure studies, you know, oil paintings, and then eventually transition into concept art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're both very, very viable. It's really just preference.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and then at the end of my FCD year there, I even got to learn some 3D with Ben Morrow, and you know, that was my first like kind of touch into 3D. And you know, he was a great teacher, so like I got to really take this mech to like, you know, to places where I really didn't know that I could do, like, just the detail and, you know, rendering and everything.
So coming out of Fengzhu school, what skills / softwares did you end up sort of not mastering, but being comfortable enough to get it to a production level to do that sort of work?
Out of Fengzhu school, I would say Photoshop and ZBrush.
Okay.
Yeah. It took me about 4 months to just get used to drawing on a Wacom, which I still do. I don't use Cintiq.
Okay.
And then I was using Photoshop basically the whole time. And it was only at the end where they were just starting to introduce more 3D software. Like some people had some, you know, SketchUp knowledge. Some people were actually like into 3D program. And I was like, you know what, I don't know any. So like whatever, you know, Ben was teaching, which was ZBrush at the time, I just picked it up.
Okay, awesome.
And, you know, I think ZBrush felt super natural for me. Like, I think a lot of the 3D modeler will hate it, but then, like, for me, it's like, it just feels like drawing.
Yeah, so, like, ZBrush has such a bad reputation when it comes to, like, 3D modelers learning it. Like, everyone just bitches at the interface, the UI, and I know I haven't taken Alex Figini's ZBrush course on Lawrence Court, but from what I heard, one of the first things he does is sort of teach you how to reorganize the UI, just to make it easier for people to go with, but to get started in. Okay, cool. So ZBrush, Photoshop, and from there, like after Fengzhu, what happened? Did you move back to Vancouver or?
Yeah, I did. So I moved back to Vancouver. I was struggling to find a job. Like I was emailing everyone, and no one would give me a reply.
Yeah.
So I hit up this artist. His name is Daryl Mandrick. Yeah, I'll type it in chat because like he's not very active online, but I feel like he's really good and he deserves the props.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Daryl Mandrick. So he's apparently, like, I never actually met him, but apparently he's a veteran concept artist here in Vancouver. And he mainly just does freelance and chill. That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, so I emailed him, and you know, he gave me a feedback when I was still at school. So basically, my email to him was more or less like, hey, I finished school. You know, thanks for your feedback. It helped me a lot. Can you give me like more feedback because I'm not getting any replies from companies, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, to my surprise, his response was just like, oh wow, I'm actually really surprised you're not getting any feedback. Let me offer you a job, kind of thing. Just super cool of him. And then that's how I got my first job at Sequence Post. They're like an animation, super small animation company.
Yeah.
And I can show you the work I did there. So I was doing a lot of these kind of background illustration work for like cinematics, and sometimes, I don't know, mostly cinematics and storyboarding actually.
Okay.
Right. And that wasn't something that I really wanted to do, so I didn't stay there for too long.
Uh-huh.
Right. But I have a funny story to tell for this one. I didn't do a lot of digital painting when I was there. when I was in Fengsu school.
Yeah.
Not as much as I'd like to. So when I went to interview at Sequence, they were basically like, okay, you know, like, where are you from? And I gave them like the typical introduction and everything. And I think because Daryl Mandrick like recommended me in there, they didn't give me an art test, nothing. They just first interview, they just offered me a salary, and I was like, okay, cool, take it. And then yeah, the very first day they gave me a big like digital painting piece to do, and I think I spent 2 days on it. And then it got to a point where they basically came by and they're like, oh, we'll just put you on something else for now. And I think I was like sweating. I was like, oh my god, this looks terrible. I wish I had that piece.
Yeah, you get whenever you get started in a career, even if you have the skills, but you don't have that speed, that mache or a couple years in speed, like you have that massive like imposter syndrome every time a brief comes in. Like you're sitting down, you're like, how the hell am I going to pull this one off? You manage, but yeah, like you sweat your whole way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's see what else we got. Yeah, and then after that I started doing some personal work, and I remember like this particular dragon piece was the very first personal work I did that I kind of felt like I was kind of proud of it at the time.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, just I'll show you. Like this is when I started doing more and more personal work, but I wasn't doing as much as now. Like it was maybe like one piece every like month or something crazy. I was playing a lot more video games back then too.
Yeah. And so when did you start from Sequence? Did you like, how long did you stay there? And at which point did you start freelancing? Like, did you do other in-house jobs before going solo, or how did that work?
Yeah, so basically after about 2 or 3 months at Sequence, I got another call from a company called Piranha Games.
Mm-hmm.
They're also local in Vancouver, and they were like, hey, we got a project that you might be interested in, sci-fi, spaceship, you want to come? And I was like, okay, sounds good to me, because I wasn't really enjoying the more illustrative work I was doing in Sequence at the time, right? So I joined them, and like these are the type of work that I was doing with them.
Okay. Just
designing like spaceships, which was like my dream job at the time, to be honest, right? And it was awesome. Like I was only there for 9 months, but I had a really, really good time, especially for the first half where we were just like really brainstorming, like what could this game be? This game went to crowdfunding and never really took off, and I think one of the biggest reasons is just that, Star Citizen, if you know it, like they're going like super strong, and then to release a game that's similar to theirs, it was just really, really risky on our part. Because
Star Citizen, if you guys don't know it, it's pretty much one of the most ambitious video games ever, and the production level in it is massive. It looks amazing, and they had they recently released like an alpha version, I believe, and working towards the beta. Just Google it, like check YouTube videos, and you'll see, for any sci-fi nerd, it's a dream come true, but it might take another decade to get to that point, like where you can actually just go full in and enjoy your experience.
Yeah, agreed. Like what basically what he describes it to be, it's gonna take a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been a long time, but but it's moving. It's moving. Like anytime he shows something, people are actually like, okay, this is actually moving forward. But it's basically an open world where you can do whatever you want in a way. So it's almost like trying as best as possible to sort of have that space, that how'd you call it, space life, almost like an open world Metal Gear Solid, but in space, with everything being possible and with its own currency. You can buy, you need to have money to upgrade your ship and whatever not. It sounds amazing on paper, but I don't know how long it'll take to actually execute.
For sure, yeah. I do like how they do share like the progress quite a bit though.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll just be in the dark for like 10 years and then we don't really
Yeah.
have.
And I mean, if you're looking for a job, they always have like open spots on ArtStation. So just, you know, keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
That's
And
another
there's,
ship.
I think there's they have like probably 10 or I'm just making this number up, but they probably have like 10 studios around the world that's
Yeah. Yeah.
looking to hire people.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right, let's see. So after that, I was there for 9 months. The project basically crashed. I was offered, like they liked me there, so they're like, hey, we're gonna offer you another position, but you're gonna be working on MechWarrior Online, which is a game that's kind of their comfort zone. Like they've been sitting on that game for a couple of years now. It's giving them a pretty steady income.
Yeah.
So they weren't really doing anything crazy or wild. And the time I kind of just, it was like a combination of, I didn't want to work on a game that was in the cruising mode. I wanted to be involved in like the heavy, blue sky design phase.
Yeah.
And I also asked myself this question quite a bit. It's like, okay, like where do I want to get to? For example, at the time, or still, like I want to work at, let's say, Bungie, right? Would working here for the next 3 years get me there?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was very obviously a no. So then, I just didn't feel like I should stay. And at the same time, Destiny 1 came out at the time, like very conveniently.
Yeah.
So I quit my job and ended up spending a lot of time playing Destiny 1 with a couple of my friends in chat. They probably know what I'm talking about. Many hours wasted. But yeah, after that, actually, I took a couple months off. And I took a course with John Park and James Peck when they started Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Yes, that was it was before Brainstorm School was even Brainstorm School. It was like, hey, we're gonna try out this online mentorship platform thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just took a leap of faith because I was reading reading all the, I guess, the contract or the course description.
Yeah.
And at the end they're just like, yeah, we'll give you like basically a free, no, not a free, but like a Gumroad every Monday. You do the homework, and we're gonna have like a 5-hour Skype session on Saturday. And I was like, you're gonna give me a 5-hour Skype session? Okay, that sounds pretty good to me. And because it was only 5 students, like that's how much spot they're opening up. Yeah. So we usually get like an hour or 2 each. And I think that course taught me quite a bit. Like this was a piece I did for them, and then it was, the course was like 10 or 12 weeks, and I did probably 10, 15 pieces.
Okay.
But every week it was just like, I kind of realized how important it is for like somebody like John or James, or even like Mache, like to paint over your work, because they will tell you like, this is what I mean by that. Yeah. A lot of times you're receiving like a video feedback or maybe a verbal feedback.
Yeah.
You don't see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like, for example, like I really remember this particular critique by John. Like he was painting over this piece, and he was repainting this character, and he was just like he didn't really mention it, but he was painting these bounce light like really, really loosely onto the character, and I was like, wait, what'd you do that? And he was just like, yeah, no, like, if you're a fan of Jamie Jones, because he always tried to exaggerate his bounce light onto the character or onto objects, and he tried to make it like the color a lot more saturated usually than they need to be. Mm-hmm. And it's something like that kind of sticks with me, and I've been using that same trick like ever since, just bounce lighting and exaggerating that.
Yeah, man, that's pretty awesome. It's so interesting to hear that you've basically quit art center to literally create your own like concept art degree by bouncing like between studios, online courses, and personal project. That's pretty interesting. I'll let you finish, and I'm sure you're going to get a couple questions about that, because I know a lot of the viewers right now are either studying concept art or studying something art related, whether it's industrial design, graphic design, motion design, whatever, and are, you know, using Learn Squared as a platform to sort of grab that education, like build those skills to help them sort of bridge the gap between whatever their current discipline is and concept art or environment art or like basically entertainment.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep going. I'm sure that like people are enjoying this.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Hopefully. A little bit of history. Yeah, I have to say, like, since you mentioned it, at this point though, like, if you don't have a degree, getting a visa to the U.S. is nearly impossible. Like, just to put it out there, like a lot of people would maybe look at me or look at some of the guys and be like, hey, like, you don't need a degree. You know, you can create your own, you know, like you said, create your own degree or create your own courses and kind of just learn, you know, from Gumroads and online school, which is like perfectly fine in fact, I think it's better, like from a skill perspective.
Yeah.
But from if you want to work in the U.S., especially like when you don't have any experience, a degree is almost a must. Like I'm a Canadian, so you'll assume that going to the U.S. for me should be easy. But I've been rejected by countless of studios just because whenever we get to the visa part, they're like, okay, let's have our immigration lawyer look into it. Okay, no, we can't do it.
Yeah. Because they always ask, what's your education? Like, what degree do you have? Like, from last to tarara. That's always one of the, how do you call it? One of the criterias. And,
it is.
You know, definitely, like, if you're working locally, if you're American in the U.S., it's especially in an industry like concept art and the entertainment industry. If you're a badass at Houdini, like drawing, sketching, if you have drama skills and you have no degree, people don't care.
No.
You know, but as soon as you need to apply for that visa, for that paper, like it becomes hell. So
it does, yeah. There's so much more. Like they'll ask you, okay, you don't have a degree. How many years have you worked?
Yeah.
I've heard somewhere that it's every 3 years of working experience equals 1 year of degree. So you don't have a degree, you have to work for like 10 to 12 years just to be on the same level as somebody who had a degree. I'm sure there's a lot of exceptions. Like there's a lot of young guys who, you know, and gals, like they got their visa pretty early without a degree. And I think you can make a special case for it, of course. Yeah, especially the bigger the studio, the better of a case they'll make for you.
Yeah, but this is definitely a reality. And one thing you'll see also, and that is sort of the thing that sucks when it comes to like immigration and all that stuff. You might have a degree from a good school in your country and everything, but as soon as you apply to the US, that degree might not be recognized. Like I've seen countless times, you know, foreigners who've been practicing, you know, who've been like practicing dentists or surgeons or whatever for like decades and things, but they move to the US or Canada and their degree is not recognized as an equivalent of a Canadian degree. So they either have to like go back to school and get the equivalent or figure something else. And that happens more often than not. So definitely if you know, you're young, you're in your early 20s and you have this dream of working for Blur or, you know, like these massive studios, this is definitely something you need to start thinking about. And I believe Eddie was asking, like, I don't think it matters if, you know, I don't think the topic or the subject of the degree matters. I think it's more the question of having a degree, because that just shows, you know, let's say if you have a degree in an Anglophone school, then you don't have to prove that you speak English. You don't have to take like English speaking tests and whatever not. So like I've been dealing with that stuff my entire life, so I'm pretty much an expert at this point. But yeah, you like paperwork is a bitch, man. That's all I'll say. I'll wrap it up at that.
Agreed. Yeah. So after that. Basically, I took the brainstorm schools. I got a job. I can't really mention it like publicly, but I got a job and let's just say it didn't turn well. So I was pretty discouraged at the time. And then right after that happened, I even actually got a call with Bungie, and Bungie at the time, it was like, for me, it was like, wow, like this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, because they're still like, my dream job. And I didn't get that. So I kind of went down into like this, like almost like a mini depression. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So I started doing more and more personal work, and that's where these spaceship stuff started coming up. And at the same time, I think it was John Liberto and Spark. They were releasing a lot of gumroads on these spaceship stuff. So I was buying them, and I was looking at it. I was like, oh man, I want to do something like that. And after doing that for a little while, that's when the Out Studio opportunity came to me. So I think I saw a question like to talk about.
Yeah, Aaron was asking how did that come about?
So yeah, it literally fell in my lap. So I shout out to ArtStation. ArtStation has probably gotten me like 90% of my job in the past 2 years.
That's awesome.
So yeah, ArtStation is crazy because like it really just created a platform where people who are not into art, like producers or directors, they can just go on and find people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like anyways, it was. Yeah, I told the story a couple of times, but like it was actually like a Saturday. It's like a Saturday morning, and I didn't have a job, so it didn't really matter. It was Saturday or Friday. It doesn't matter. But like, yeah, I woke up and I was still like in my boxers and everything, and then I just checking my email, and all of a sudden like an email popped up, and the title was just Neil Blomkamp, and there was no title, and then my first instinct was just like, yeah, this is one of my friends trolling me for sure, because they know I'm looking for a job. So I was gonna message my Skype chat with my friends from Singapore. I'm like, did anyone send me an email using Neil Blomkamp to me? Yeah, and the way he writes emails too it's really informal. It's very, very casual. It just looks like somebody's writing to you, like, and you know him for like 10 years already, right? So the first reply, I think his message was something like, "Hey Steve, really like your work. Any chance we can work together?" And then I just replied, because the punctuation was quite weird, so I just replied to him like, "Hey Neil, are you like for reals, man? Like real Neil Blomkamp?" And then he just like, "Yeah, I'm for real." And then I was like, okay, cool, let's schedule something. He's like, yeah, just come by our space next Monday. So I went there, I checked it out, and that was like the very beginning of O Studios, where there was like 10 guys and a huge warehouse. I wish I had some photos to show, but I don't have that right now. But
just a quick question: is Oat Studio based in Vancouver?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, good. All right.
They're in a part of Vancouver called Richmond.
Okay.
Yep, and it's relatively in Vancouver. It's a relatively cheaper area, so they were able to rent basically like an old. I think it used to be a furniture store or a furniture warehouse.
Okay. And
that place it's like huge. It's like a supermarket sized place. Like probably not that big, but like it's a big place.
Yeah.
But the thing is, on the outside, it's really, really abandoned and ghetto. So when I first got there, I was like, there's no sign. It didn't say Oats. It didn't say any of where they come from.
I'm about to get kidnapped.
Yeah, I'm like, this is not right. But then I saw like, a couple, especially when I saw, there was like 2 or 3, his nice cars parked outside. I was like, okay, this is his place or this is some kind of gang related shit. So I knocked. Funny, though. Yeah, it's super weird experience. I knocked, and then I opened the door, and then I see like the giant, the moose model from I think from Chappie. Yeah, from Chappie.
Yeah.
It's like this big thing, and I was like, okay, this is real. And I was like nerding out. But yeah, that's how I got my job there.
That's awesome, man. That's. It's yeah, I'm still thinking about the whole journey, like when someone tell you, and props to your parents, man, for being super supportive, because you you come from an immigrant family. You're like, Mom, Dad, I want to quit school, because like I told my mom I wanted to quit school because I wanted to do this other thing, right? And she was like, dude, Like I've been, you only have this much left. Like go and sit back down in your room and get your shit done. Like there's no way in hell you're starting something from scratch, you know? So yeah, definitely. And just, you know, like we'll talk a little bit more about just how much work you put in, because yeah, most you know, things have been working out, and I'm sure it's not like just falling on your lap, like you've been doing the work and everything, but just having that clear vision of what it is you want to do, and you know, thinking about, okay, will this job at Sequence take me to that next step? You know, does it, yes or no? No. Okay, I need to react quickly and adjust things so that I can end to that position where I want to be. I think those are things, like, unless you have someone who sort of like shows you, or like we're doing here, you sort of telling your story, if you don't have that mentor or someone who's further along the path to tell you these things, sometimes you never ask them to yourself and you start wasting time, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of wasting time for, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to get to that point where it's like, I'm pinpoint focused and this is exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think for me, that focus, I think it was somewhere along like maybe a year or two, a year and a half into Oats.
Yeah.
And I have a really good friend there. His name is Ian Spriggs. He's one of the best like character artists in the world right now. So look him up. He's at an art station. Give him some love.
What's his name?
Ian, I'll type it out.
Yeah, type it out for the crowd.
He's on our station. He's great. So me and him, like, I think he was the only person there where I could actually talk about like art theory and personal work too, because it seems like he's doing the same thing, like doing personal work here and there. And then I think one day he just asked me, he was like, "So Steve, like, so you've been at Oats for like a year and a half?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "When was the last time you did a piece that you were proud of?" And then I just couldn't think of one. I was like, "Oh wait, I think I did a piece when I was doing like one of the brainstorm challenge, and I did like an Indiana Jones piece." I'll show you guys. It's this one. I was like, I think this is the last piece I did that I kind of felt like I was proud of it when I was, you know, when I was done at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was probably a year and a half ago, like between this piece and when he asked me that question. So that kind of sparked me into thinking about, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Because at the time I was trying to catch up with the pace that O Studio was working at, because it was really my first like film job, especially with a big director. Yeah. And he's asking things like, sometimes I get a day, but a lot of times like he give me a brief, and because we're all, the benefit of Oats is that we're all in the same space. Like there was no producer between me and Neo, or like Neo and anyone else. So he's able to walk by and be like, you know, just kind of peek over your shoulder, like, "Hey, what are you working on? Like, how's that idea going?" And then that kind of just put me a lot of pressure to get ideas out. Yeah. Right. And Neo seems to be a director where he really prefers speed and ideas and sketches more than like a finished illustration or something that can be used for marketing or whatever. Yeah. Right. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, obviously, I can't convince him to let me, you know, spend that much time in painting. So I got to do it. I got to do some personal work. And that's kind of when I started doing a lot more personal work and really putting a lot of thought into like things like I couldn't think of, like composition and colors and stuff. I also met a guy, super nice guy. I'll type his name, Joseph Cross. I mean, you guys probably know him. But Joseph Cross, I think he actually took Ash's course and stuff, and he's the lead concept artist at Bungie right now, I believe. And he's one of the really nice guys, because usually when I email like professionals, like most of them are too busy to really respond. Yeah. And he was one of the guy who was like, he was responding, and he was actually willing to, you know, I drove down to Seattle, and he was like, "Yeah, let's get coffee." And he really gave me like a solid like 2 to 3 hours, just like going over my work and talking about, you know, what Bungie's like, and telling me like, "Hey, maybe you should try to look at things this way, and you know, maybe like compositionally try to look at it black and white. You know, like it's all graphic design, it's all shape design." And that kind of set me on the path of doing a lot of my personal work later on. So yeah, these are some of the stuff from the shorts that we're doing at Oats. You guys have seen these.
I have to go and watch. Like I remember seeing the sort of the promotion to the show and everything, but I don't even know how many episodes are out at this point.
Oh man, I think it must be over like 10 episodes, but
Yeah.
we still only have like 2 big ones. One of them is called Firebase, the other one's Raka. Oh, there's another one called Zygo. So we have 3 like big ones that are like 20 minutes long.
Okay. But yeah, I'm a, you know, people who've been on the stream before know that I'm a pretty big sci-fi. Like that's what really like takes me like out of my routine, out of everything. So definitely I'm going to look at it after the stream for sure.
Yeah, please. Yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated. It's a pretty cool idea that he had for us, right? It's just like, here's a collaboration of random ideas.
Yeah.
You don't have the pressure of making it into a feature. You could be like, it could be a 1-minute YouTube video, and it's just an idea. And because he has the resources and the connection to maybe even put like $500,000 into a small idea, it makes Oat Studio possible.
If you have if you can post a link to the trailer at some point so that people in the chat can check it out, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let me do that real quick right now. Just follow their YouTube channel. There you go. Done.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah.
If you guys have any questions for Steve, keep posting them. We'll have a blitz through them towards the end of the stream. But yeah, just do anything you need to ask about education, question, whatever you're trying to figure something out. Just go ahead and post it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll try to get to all of them, I think. And then after like the Oats project kind of ended, I was still on there, and we're working on a lot of stuff for the Atom shorts for Unity. So I don't think these has been seen yet. And so like I was helping Neo like explore the world of Atom, and what happens once like those Atom robots like get out of the city, like where they live, and stuff like that.
That's pretty badass, man.
Yeah, it was a really fun project. It was like purely like we had so many artists on it. Like I was the only in-house guy, but like we had probably like maybe like 10 or 12. I gotta check the credit, but like probably 10 or 12 like other artists. We were just all like given a lot of ideas. Obviously, due to like time and budget concerns, like the final short, it's 5 minutes long or 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
But the amount of design that went behind it to build that world, probably like hundreds and hundreds of pieces, I think.
No, you can tell, like you can, like it's hard to look at, the design, the shapes and everything and find something that feels like a filler. When I'm looking at the character design and all of that, so far the episodes we've seen are, in terms of environment, are very simple. Like things are sort of a little more minimalist and everything, but the characters are so rich and yeah, everything seems so thought through.
Oh, it was the process. I think it's not NDA, but like the process, basically Neo had to write like a Bible first, right? And then that Bible was basically everything that we had to go from. And then the process was like, hey, here's the Bible, read it. Here's a list of like 50 things that you could draw. Just pick whatever fuck you want to draw and just draw it.
Wow.
Right. And then
that's pretty awesome because it gives you
finalized. We got into more like production heavy stuff. Those were less fun. Sure. And it was like right now we're looking at a piece that kind of started my whole personal work kind of journey. Because at the time I was really obsessed with mixing sci-fi with fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. And then at the time, like I always wished that Destiny 1 had dragons in it. So I was, you know what? I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make my own version of it, and I took a lot of the feedback from Joseph, like, you know, compositionally, you know, the way detail leads into the shot, and how like diagonals help frame the shot and stuff like that. You know, just using a lot of his feedback into this, and that kind of pushed me towards, you know, doing more pieces where it's that weird universe of like having dragons, you know, so like Lord of the Rings, but then like why is there like this robotic characters in it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I've been playing with for like a couple months since the beginning of this year. Like even pieces like this where it's like, wow, like it's a very fantasy piece. Like, okay, cool, there was a fight here or something, the dragon, a really big dragon died here, but then you look at it and you're like, okay, well there's like propellers of engines.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened? Like stuff like that. I also, because of Che, I start looking into like Fusion 360. So I start doing a lot of that. Like whenever I don't feel like I'm drawing, I don't feel like drawing or I don't feel like painting, I try to either go follow a tutorial or just do some 3D,
Mm-hmm.
or go like read a book or something, right? Like it's trying to, because I feel like learning 3D actually feeds into your design, your lighting, your drawing, your painting. Like they all work with each other. So by improving one thing, everything else kind of raises at the same level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it keeps, you know, as Kalina says, like it keeps your juices flowing. You know, you sort of can offset your frustration from one thing to the next, and just sort of keep that energy, that battery / motivation going. Because if you're doing one, you know, if you do your painting and you get to a point where, you know, if you post it on ArtStation, people are going to like it and whatever not. But for you, that progress, like you feel like you're stalling, you're repeating yourself, switching to a different discipline, whether it's 3D photography or just, you know, learning some theory or doing a couple tutorials, all that are ways to sort of recharge your creative battery so that when you get back to it, like you're, you know, you can keep going. Like marathon style.
For sure. And I think this is one of the things Zeus think, but like you used to say like, hey, whenever you feel burnt out or something, just do something that's within your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like for him, it would be spaceships and, you know, spaceshipy looking environments. Just go back to your comfort zone, do a piece or two that you're very comfortable with. You've done it before probably, right? And then it's just to get your hands moving. Like I think that's the biggest thing, was like you're drawing something, you're painting something, and you feel like creatively nothing that's coming out looks good,
mm-hmm.
right? Then go back to something that you know looks good, right? All right, let's go to next one. Yeah, this one actually got a lot more attention than I expected, because this one was definitely the quickest painting out of all my personal pieces. But again, like I'm trying to explore, like for this one, it's definitely taking it a lot, you know, to the fantasy side than the sci-fi side, because even the characters doesn't resemble any science fiction anymore.
Mm-hmm. But what I like about, if you go back to the, I was actually showing this, showing your portfolio, just preparing for the stream to a couple of friends, and the first thing, like when I was showing them your ArtStation page, any of the paintings you did where you had like this extremely moody sky, they're like, this is gorgeous, this is gorgeous. So like the orange tone in this one, the pinkish tone in the tank and the planes and all that stuff, all that were the first ones they sort of ran to. And this one here has Ash always like he's really attracted to these frames or images where you see stuff, but because of the shadow play, you lose all of the details. So a lot of it is left for the imagination to work with. And Ratatouille, like that, like Disney cartoon, does a lot of that. Alien does a lot of that, where you have, you know, 60% of the frame that's like in shadows, with
Yeah.
tiny bit of bounce light here and there. And same
Yep.
thing here. You can't see any details on the dragon, but the scale is there. You know what I mean? It's beautiful.
Yeah. No details. But yeah, I guess that's saying something, right? Like what you just said. It's like the detail is not the most important thing, really, most of the time. And a lot of times when I do a personal piece or even at work, I'm diving into the detail. I'm spending like days just painting the details. I feel like, hey, is it even worth it, or should I just make it really moody and silhouette everything? Yeah, just exploring more. Like these are the ones you saw.
I love this one.
Yeah, this was an interesting shot. I think I got a shout to my friend Pally, who's in the chat. So he kind of inspired me to doing this. Like we were at THU together.
Okay.
Last month, and then he was asking me if I want to do some World War I or World War II paintings with him for Remembrance Day in Canada. So ever since he said that, I just kept on having this particular composition in my head. Like I'm like, okay, I want this sunset or sunrise, like big puffy clouds, and then I want this heroic figure. Like that's just into the, just going into the cloud kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you're looking at him only. So then, yeah, I know it's not Remembrance Days yet, so sorry, Pally, but yeah, I just had to do it because it was in my head. It was like I had to get it out before I can move on to something else. And even the plane one is similar. Like I did the tank one first, and then there were some concepts that I was playing with, like because I was doing Ala Prima. So then it was like, okay, like I learned something about color from my last piece, so let me try to apply it to something a composition where I didn't really have in my head. Yeah. I was making it up as I go. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great, man. Like you can totally picture the scene, the atmosphere, everything, like the time of day. Like it's really strong.
Yeah, thanks. I think these are easier. Like I guess that's why they call it Magic Hour, right? Because it kind of makes it easier to make things look good. Just to answer a quick question from the chat, how do you create your clouds? I use most of the time I use a lot of photographs. I just got to be honest there. I don't want to claim that, hey, I painted everything. No, I use
whatever works, man. Right?
Whatever works. And if not photograph, if not using the photograph directly, I use a photograph as a color reference 100% of the time, because my color sense is not. I don't think I have a natural color sense or something. So when I'm looking at a piece or like a photograph for clouds and stuff, I'm like studying like, okay, when the cloud turns, the form changes and is facing the ground, is that getting more saturated or desaturated? And that kind of informs me of the color of what's reflecting of underneath, like the color of the ground, right? Is it ice? Is it mountains? And that's kind of giving me a lot of idea on, okay, for example, what color would I paint the planes, right? And stuff like that. And that's kind of one of the biggest thing I learned in the Ala Prima book, is that he's basically saying how like your light will influence the color of everything that you paint. Yeah. Right? So getting a nice sky in, it's like the first step for me, always. Once the sky tone is set, now I can play from there.
Gotcha. If you're okay with it at before the end of the stream, if we could jump into Photoshop, because there's a couple of things that I'd like you, if possible, to demo. Is just like pick 2-3 pieces from your art station and just show us how do you direct the eye, because when you showed that first Destiny and Dragon piece, you were talking about that, like how you're trying to set the composition to make it strong. And the second thing, if you could show us, how do you go about picking a good reference? Because we had Eitan Zana on the stream a couple months ago, and he was talking exactly about the same subject. How do you go about selecting like good color? How do you go about selecting good references? And sometimes you might you know, pick a reference that's already been color edited, but that looks wrong. So you're starting with something that has like defects in it already. But yeah, just those two things. If we could do that a little bit towards the end. But yeah, keep going, man. This is awesome. I'm like just sitting down and enjoying, man.
Cool, awesome. I'm glad. Actually, that stream was the one that gave me the idea to start looking into these photographs more and more. And I teach a class at a local university. I'm just kind of introducing a lot of the young kids to like concept art and stuff like that. And that was the very first assignment I gave them. I'm like, you got to learn how to pick good reference photos first, because it doesn't matter if you want to be a modeler, a lighting artist, or concept artist at the end. It's like your eyes should be trained to realize like what's real and what's good, right? And to me, I'm definitely working on it. But okay, I can open a couple things in Photoshop. Let's see.
If there's anything you want to keep showing first, we can finish with that, because
no, like this is all like this is the last piece. This is like a personal project I'm working on, so I thought maybe I'll just tease it a little bit, but I'm still working on it, so
that's looking good.
Yeah, I'll open a couple of pieces. So unfortunately, I usually merge all my layers at the end, or you know, when I'm painting I merge all my layers.
Yeah,
so I can't like go layer to layer, but I can definitely draw over and show you guys what I mean by composing these images.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah. Maybe this one. So some of the recent pieces, that's the ones I'll show, just because I think I'm starting to dive into that idea more, versus before I was a bit more clueless. Let's see. It's funny, I met Sparth when I was down in THU, and he actually gave me some feedback for these pieces, so I probably have to make some changes to them when I have time.
What feedback on, like, color theory, composition, both?
It's mainly composition. I think Sparth, he's a big composition guy, and he was like, hey, just move this around here and there, and then, you know, he was catching a lot of my tangents that I didn't see before. Like, for example, for this particular piece with the skull, like he was saying how, like, hey, look at how this propeller is in tangent with this skull, and this propeller is in tangent with that. Like he was just pointing out these small things. I'm like, oh, heck, I didn't even see it until you pointed out to me. But overall, I think it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is terrible, and you know, there's a lot of things you gotta change. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's start from where it all began. So one trick that I like to do in Photoshop, this is not to credit me. I think, you know, Iten and Shadi, they probably all do this. Mache probably all do this, but I actually learned this particular trick from Joseph Cross. So what you do is when you have a painting and or maybe you're painting, you know, you're doing the painting, you go to just create a new layer, and you create a threshold layer, and what that does is give you a black and white, very graphical representation of your painting. So it takes away all the details, right? And it's just light and dark, and you just kind of play around with it a little bit, right? And you see, maybe this is a pretty good. So first of all, like, one of the points he was telling me is like, okay, if your image reads at this point, it's probably going to work in color and when you painted it. Okay. Because it has a really nice graphical sense. Okay. Right? And on top of that, when you start, I'm composing the image. I'm not sure if I'm the best person to talk about this, but like I'm seeing videos from like Craig Mullins back in the days, and like some of Mache stuff, and I look at a lot of Jamie Jones's work, and I think that a word that comes back a lot is contrast, and not just contrast in light and dark, but like contrast in textures, contrast in details, and contrast in edges. Right. So for this particular shot, like it really is simple, right? Like you just have this dark shade leading towards the character, so you're literally being very direct. You're pointing towards it, and then you have these light shapes that are basically breaking up the shape. And then because you have details on this side of the character, on the back side of the character, I want it to just be silhouette, right? Just be a nice silhouette. But because I haven't, because this part of the cape and the backside of the character is so simple, I'm giving the scale of the dragon and the mountains in the back a lot more love, because I'm contrasting it with the simplicity, with simplicity with complexity, right? And like things like for a shot like this, you think like, okay, maybe like the anatomy. To me, the anatomy is not the most important. Like the dragon anatomy is probably like completely off here, but I'm mainly just looking at like, okay, like what is this shape, and does it help compose my shot? So that's kind of the idea that I take with me to most of my paintings. Let's see if there's any color stuff I can talk about. Maybe the next one. Excuse me. Yeah, I think this one, I'm not sure how, I don't think I turned this one black and white, but yeah, this one's probably similar. So like if you turn your shots black and white, it's just like, it's very obvious at that point, like what's reading and what's not.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's like, oh, what value is too dark? What value is too bright, right? And a lot of times, like I think people like, or I like it when you show scale and very obvious scale. So that's why all these bird brushes came from. Because you have a big object, you throw a couple birds in there, and then boom, all of a sudden it feels...
Yeah, scale is
gigantic.
readable.
Yeah, scale is super readable. Let's go to... Yeah, for this one... let me see if I can find...
The layered PSD?
I'm not sure if I have the layer. Okay, let me see.
Do you actually delete them? Like once you're happy with the piece, you flatten it, you're done with it, like...
I merge it. Okay, I was working on a piece last night, so I could show you guys. It's a work in progress for my personal project. So you know, it's a giant mech that's abandoned and broken in the desert, right? So you see on the right side, just one layer now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like I always make sure that I keep my layers. At least, you know, I always merge one on top, but I keep everything else just in case I need to go back. But it's interesting that you always just merge them, and then it's like, okay, I'm fucked. I can't do anything with it except start with a new one, you know?
Yeah, with my client work, I definitely try not to merge them. The personal work, I try to merge them. Once I get to a point where I'm like, all right, I'm happy with this, I'm ready to just paint, or I'm ready to just add some of my own flair to it, then I just merge it, and a lot of it at that point is just brushing.
That's an interesting practice. That's pretty. Yeah, I mean it's good because it does take away from that, you know, like Control Z tendency and oh, I can, like at that point, once you've merged everything, close Photoshop, you reopen it, there's no going back. You can just fix what you can and then call it done and move on. So it does. I can see how that can work, definitely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's go to the next one. I think this one is just very obvious. I think the simplicity of this one was probably what made it more successful than others, and just like the impossible scale. It's almost like those shots with in the new King Kong movie, Skull Island.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like King Kong is almost blending into
the landscape.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And then you got these mountains here, but this dragon is obviously way bigger. And then you got the birds and the characters, and I think everything just kind of ties together. Yeah. Let's go to this one. So yeah, this one was a lot of reading Richard Schmidt's book for an hour, and then painting for like 3 hours, and then going back to reading for like a couple more chapters, and then painting. Because now I look at it, there's a lot of things I want to change, but I know exactly why I made those decisions, right? Like I mentioned before, like he always talked about squinting, and when you squint, you can tell which edges you're supposed to paint soft, and which edges you're supposed to paint hard. And he always talks about like having only one focal point, and it's very, 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 very linear. Like that makes your statement a lot stronger, right? So at first, when I was painting this, I don't have the layers anymore, but at first when I was painting this particular piece, I wanted the ground to be even reflective. Like I wanted the ground to receive some of the lights, right?
Yeah.
And eventually I kind of I just didn't do that because I was like, that's destroying the statement of having this character in the middle as the focal point.
Mm-hmm.
Like making the ground, the grass, the landscape merge. Like I can probably take out even more detail, like just merging in with the tank. And then even like if you look at the background, you try to be very versatile. Like all the tones are cool, all the like purple, cool, bluish tone.
Yeah.
And you're not really introducing any of the bright, the warmth. The only warmth is in the background of this character.
Yeah.
And he's also the sharpest edges that I'm trying to maintain in this painting. Right? So I think the energy, I guess there's not a lot of like huge flow to it, but the energy is like, it's very obvious. Boom. Like that's it. Boom.
Yeah.
Like just look at that.
Yeah.
And if you really zoom into like, oh shit, I just drew them wrong layer. If you really zoom into like the clouds and stuff, they're not like super well painted, but like I'm just looking at, okay, squint my eyes. Would I look at that edge? Would it be sharp? No? Okay, let's just smudge it. Let's smudge it or mix or brush it, whatever. Right? Okay, that side is, this side is receiving light, so it probably will be sharper. The shadow side will not be receiving light, and it will be blending into the sky a little bit more. So that edge could actually have more benefit if it's softer.
And for this, like you generally have like a reference that you're working from just to get a good idea of like the shadow, the light, the contrast and all that, the values and all that.
Pardon me? Sorry.
Like when you're building this cloud, like you generally have a reference for like colors and shapes and what is like where the shadows hit and so on?
I have a sky reference, so I have a photo that's like basically a similar time of day to this painting.
Okay.
And then I will paint in the landscape because like I said, once I have the sky right, then I can basically like you can figure out the predominant color of the sky. So like for this time of day, maybe it's like purple.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the actual like pigment is, but let's say it's purple. Mm-hmm. So then if you mix purple with, let's say you want to make it a little bit brighter, you mix purple with like white or something. Then if it gives you a desaturated bluish tone, then you mix it with red, that gives you a bit more warmth and more earthy tone. Like that's kind of how I figure out what color I'm going to use for my foreground. Mm-hmm. Like not actually finding like, hey, what is there like an object or a tank that's in this scenario? Like I just couldn't for this particular painting. Like nobody in a tank posed in this sunset scenario for me. So unfortunately, I kind of I just had to make it up.
Yeah, no, it looks great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, a lot of it is also just artistic licensing, man. A lot of times, if it looks good to you, then it looks good. Then it doesn't have to be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go over some questions?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm actually just scrolling back to the top.
Yeah, sure.
And make my way down. So.
Try to go over there. Go fast.
Someone's asking, Raja's asking, would you do any gumroads? Or do you have any?
Thinking about it. I don't have any, but thinking about it. I don't think I can offer anything that's not already out there. That's the thing.
Okay. I mean, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
Next. Eddie's asking, how do you manage to be good at all these different things? And I'm guessing, how do you manage to be a good concept artist? Because being a good concept artist, generally, like you're doing hard surface, you're doing character, you're doing environment, you're doing digital paint, like all these different things, 3D modeling. Like how do you keep yourself sharp throughout the different skill sets?
I don't think I'm sharp in everything. I think it wasn't like a pick for me, right? If I could pick, I might be like, okay, I just want to do like, environments. But it was like, hey, I was working in small studios. Even Oak Studio was considered a very, very small studio. It was like 15 guys in the beginning. So it was like you're the only concept artist in the house. So you kind of have to do everything, right? You're kind of forced to do everything. So I think it goes back to the topic of like, what do you want to do? Like, don't say like, I want to be good at everything. Because I don't think it's possible. Like for me, I don't do characters. Like only when I have to do characters, I do characters. But when I'm not like forced to do it, like in a job, I don't do it.
Okay.
Because I don't think I'm good at it. Like I don't think I'm good enough at anatomy, expression, and all those other stuff to do it professionally. I think it's always to be, if you want to start, you're starting out, it's probably better to be a jack of all trade, just because like you're more hireable for smaller studios, right? Because you can do everything, you know, decently well. Like that's what I was trying to aim for.
Yeah.
And maybe once for your personal work, maybe like for me, I'm really into keyframes and illustrations, and poster design and stuff like that. So like you might want to just do that for your personal work, because you want to be the master of that thing. Like Aton is the master of environment designs.
Yeah.
Right? That's his thing, and he's gotten really, really far from it.
Yeah. Yeah. With this sort of joins Ahmed's question, which was, you know, how, like, is it better to be a multidisciplinary artist, or to just focus on one thing? And if you do have to focus on one thing, how do you go about picking it? That's his question.
Yeah, do whatever you like, really, like whatever you enjoy doing. So that's the only right answer I think I can give for that particular. Because I ask myself that like all the time, right? And then I think it was about a year when I was in the middle of Oats. It was around the same time where Ian asked me that question about like when was the last time I did a piece I was proud of. And then I kind of just decided that, like, I was just driving to work one day and I was just like, like what would I be happy with when I'm like 30 years old? So at the time I was 25. So like in 5 years, how would I be happy? And then, you know, like, is it money? No, probably not. Like, is it to work on big projects? No. And then like, even like staying at Oats for 5 years wouldn't make me happy. And then I think the only thing that would is to get to the similar level to the realm of like guys like Che and John Parr and Jamie Jones, right? I mean, Jamie Jones is my all-time like #1 artistic hero. So it's like, okay, if I can get into that realm in 5 years, even if I'm homeless and jobless, I will be very happy. Okay, now what does Jamie Jones do? A lot of keyframes. So what did I do when I'm at home and I'm doing my personal work? Keyframes. Yeah. And designing those. Like it's really simple, and that's what I enjoy doing, and that aligns with my goal, and that's what I'm pursuing, right?
Yeah, that's a very common way to sort of figure out what it is that you enjoy doing. It's figuring out, you know, who are you like? Yeah. Who your heroes are, like, and you know, whoever that person is, what is it that they do? Why is it that it makes you so happy to see that sort of work? And then to sort of work your way back and figure out what sort of, you know, something as simple as if you have an artist you really admire on ArtStation, you just go to their about page and see, okay, what sort of skill set do they have, what software do they use, and you try to break down the information to the point where you have like these unit increments of, okay, so he's good at 3D, he's good at sketching, he's good at this. Then you pick which out of those three you want to get started with, which are you most interested in, and then that you break down in more pieces to figure out, okay, what are the different skills within that, and you pick that one skill. How do you get started in that? It's always about coming to the smallest unit increment and figuring out how you get started in that, and doing it in a way that you don't overwhelm yourself. So really, even though you know, like Steve, you're doing this with your personal work, and even if you look at Mache's personal work, like oftentimes you'll have 2 items in the frame, like one main character, perhaps a secondary character. You know, Mache did like personal guys and then a dragon in the background, or
Yep.
one item and a secondary item in the background, and then a very simple environment. And just things like that, even though they, you know, they've done beastly work. Like you look at Mache's work, he's capable of doing a lot more, but he keeps it very simple when he's doing his personal stuff. So you also need to be realistic with your skill level and make sure you always, this is not, you know, it, I'm not saying this is what you should do, but just bring it to a level where you diminish the amount, the chances of failing. Because what you want to do is just get to the point where you're working all the time, your hands are moving all the time.
Yep.
And slowly with the mileage, with time and everything, you'll get to that point. But you have to be very aware of where you put your energy in. And as Steve was saying, you know, always asking your question, is what you're doing now, will it help you reach whatever goal it is that you have? And how far is that goal? Is it in 3 months, in a year, in 2 years, and so on? So just a lot of questioning and being very clear. If you're not sure about the direction, it means you haven't asked the proper questions yet. So
Yep.
you need to clarify that before you start investing time and energy.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like recommend just don't compare to, like, you got these heroes, right? But like don't compare to them now. Compare to them when they were your age, or when they were around like your, you know, around your path. For example, you're a student, you've been doing this for 1 year. Well, if you like Mache, go look at what Mache was doing when he was first starting, like the first year. Like I think in THU he showed a couple of work and it wasn't very good, right? So don't think that you have to reach there like now. It's he was there, he was in the same spot, everyone was in the same spot, and it's really just through like a lot of hours put in the right, like in the right direction, that got him to where he is, I think.
Yeah.
Right. It's very, very rare when you find like, you know, like a quote unquote like a genius type of guy where you're like 15 years old and you're really, really like killing it already. You know, it's pretty rare. It's a lot of hard work behind everything.
Yeah. Next question. When you're doing dragons, or, you know, like the creatures for oats and all that, like organic creatures mainly, how do you go about finding, what's the creative process when it comes to the design, like the shapes and finding good references for that?
Creatures. I'm not the biggest creature designer, but really like it all comes down to just looking at like realistic animal stuff, like animal shapes. Yeah, I don't know, like just go type in like dragon anatomy, right? And that's their interpretation of other artists, where they had like a lot of skulls and, you know, muscle diagrams of what a dragon theoretically would look like, right? And then that would be a good start. And then maybe looking at like lizards, right? Lizards for the skin texture. Looking at what is that? Like a big cat, like a tiger or something, like a furless tiger for the muscular, the arm anatomy. And maybe looking at a bat or like a flying fox for the wing anatomy, right? Those are what will give you a pretty good idea to start. And honestly, like, it is an illustration, it is design, so it doesn't. The first like goal is always to make it look cool, versus would it actually be, you know, like possible,
Yeah,
on Earth, I think.
cool. What is one of your favorite design tasks at work, and what do you find the most challenging?
My favorite design task at work will be something like, probably just like that Unity thing where, like, you know, you read the Bible that's written by Neo, and then he's like, okay, just pick like whatever images comes to your head when you're reading the script or you're reading the Bible. Visualize that. I think that's my favorite part of all of my working career so far. Like, other than personal work, I enjoy personal work a lot. Most challenging part, like topic-wise, definitely characters, because I'm not very good at it. But like in general, it'll be when someone's trying to micromanage what I do, because like I don't work really well when when there's a lot of like directions.
Mm.
Like every 4 hours, every day you're coming down and you're like saying, like, hey, change this and change that. But like I feel like a good idea and a good design or a good image takes time. So you gotta give us some time to sit there and figure it out first before you make a lot of changes. And it's really difficult in the world of production. It's like changes happens all the time.
All right, I'm just going through.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll actually repost your ArtStation because people are asking for it.
Cool.
ArtStation, Steve, boom. There you go. For anyone asking, and I'm just going through. So where do you see yourself in 10 years? What would you want to have accomplished?
Damn, who asked that question? Okay, this is an interview.
Why would you focus time on your? Basically, they're asking, in 10 years, do you see yourself with your own IP or still doing what you do at a higher level? I think that's the question.
I think I want to do my own IP at a higher level. That's probably but I want to, like, 10 years is a long time, right?
Yeah,
10 years can make and break. Like, I've been in the industry for like 4 or 5 years, so 10 years is like out of my reach. But I think 10-year, if I could plan this perfectly, I will probably use the next 5 to 7 years to really just soak up as much information from other people as I can. So like, for example, I still want to go to these big studios to work because I want to learn all the stuff from other artists, right? And then maybe in that end of the 10 years, the last 2 to 3 years, I'll take all the skills and the knowledge and the inspiration I acquired in the past 7, and then really sit down and write a script or draw make a book or something.
Yeah. With dragons and mechs.
You know what? It's funny because I'll probably spin around the circle, and at the end of the day, I'll probably come back to that in 10 years. No joke. I'll probably.
All right. I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any last question, post it now. You've got 2 minutes to do so, and after that, we'll call it a wrap because it's been an hour and a half and it's been pretty awesome, I have to say.
Thanks, man. I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. Yeah,
no, it's super fun, and it's anytime someone comes on, they have like a whole different, the stream sort of becomes its own beast, like. And today, like I thought the journey would be, the first like 15 minutes, but then because it's so interesting and your journey like this, the journey you sort of went through is something a lot of people are always asking asking for, how did you get started? Like, where did you go? What happened then? And so on. And that sort of being the meat of the stream was awesome because it was super insightful and going from like literally like dropping out of ArtStation, where most people would ask you, why did you do that? Like, we're trying to get in, why do you run away, type of thing. And figuring out your way, to end up to a place like Oats, which, is like cream of the crop when it comes to the production in today's standard. So it's pretty awesome for you to have given people sort of a peek through that. And I guess the last questions they're asking you is, just like couple tips, advice, like what it is you would, what would you tell yourself in the past, future, or type of thing? Like what advice would you drop?
Sorry, I was reading the chat. I was trying to find that question. Can you say it again, please?
Just, what's the major tip you would leave people with?
Let me think.
You can give a very specific one and a very broad one to make it easy.
Okay. Okay, a very broad one. I'll start with the broad one because it's something I've been thinking of recently. I think the simplified way of saying it is, if you, assuming that you throw talent out the door, like there's no talent involved, right? So if you or I were to put in the same amount of time and hours as one of your heroes, theoretically it shouldn't be impossible for you to be as good or better than they are. And that's something that I've been looking into. Like I've been looking into like how much time and effort did you spend getting here? Like everyone can get lucky. Like Oates for me was lucky. Like I kind of just fell into my lap, to be honest. Like I was preparing my portfolio. My portfolio was at the level where I can work there, but opportunity wise, it would really just fell into my lap. So like throw those out the window. How much work is required to get there, and then do it, right? Like even today, like you're like, okay, let's say I look at an artist, I really look up to him. Well, how much does he make? Let's see. Oh, he makes $200 an hour, right? How much do you make? I make $20 an hour. Okay, what is he doing better than me? Oh, okay, he's been working 12 hours a day for the last 10 years, and that's how he got there. Well, there you go. Like when you're talking about how to do it, how to find the right path, it's actually just that simple. Like that's it. Do that. Do the exact same thing they did. And I guess a very, very, more like a smaller tip would be this, man. Plug Richard Schmidt, Sir Richard Schmidt, Alla Prima. Please go get it. It's expensive, but I really think it's worth. It's worth the money. I learned so much from that. Like you have to filter it. It's a very, very dry book because he mainly goes over from a traditional oil painting standpoint, but a lot of the stuff you can just grab and use in your creative work.
Yeah, I'll post a link right now.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. I see a lot of familiar names and friends and stuff. So I was bugging people yesterday, like, hey, join, so there wouldn't be just like 5 people.
Yeah, no, like people, I think people enjoy having these streams and just being able, it's nice. Like Twitch makes it very easy for us to sort of put artists who don't necessarily have the time to answer questions all the time, but to just jump in for an hour and a half, blitz through a couple questions and sort of show their process, and you basically get a lot more out of this 1 hour and a half than you would like scrambling for information online and whatever.
Yeah,
not
sure.
Yeah, people are stoked, man. Everyone's super stoked.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to maybe even like come back in the future and
yeah, man, anytime. Yeah. Like you just tell me, Mo, whoever you have on, just like fire them. I'm on next week. I'll be like, for sure, man, let's do this.
Yeah, we could do that, and maybe we can get to one where it's like more like technique, question based or something. I don't know.
For sure.
If anyone's interested.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't think I should charge Gumroad for these. I'll just let's just stream it.
Yeah, we'll figure something out, because I'm sure people are definitely interested. Jordan is asking, is there a big concept art community in Vancouver?
No, there's like 5 guys, man. Come here.
There you go.
Easy
He's
jumps.
one of them.
Yeah. No, just kidding. There's not 5 guys. There's a very, compared to LA, which is like in the hundreds, I think. I mean, you guys in LA might want to correct me, but I think LA is probably in the hundreds of artists. And then in Vancouver, maybe like 15, 20, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
15 or 20. Yeah, so.
Cool. All right, guys, it's been awesome. We're going to wrap this one here. Again, if you guys have any suggestions for artists you'd like to have on the stream, just let us know. You can post it on Facebook, wherever. Just hit us up, and I'll be back next Sunday with hopefully someone you guys will dig, and it'll be as dope as today. Like today was really awesome. A lot of information. it was pretty cool to see like the entire journey of Steve slash Swang slash swag. Yeah, it's been awesome. So yeah, tune in. I'm going to just so for people who've missed the stream, I'll restream it tomorrow 1 p.m. I'll post something on Facebook just before doing so you guys can tune in and enjoy the goodness. All right, on that note, peace everybody.
See you guys.
All right, take care.